I want to talk to you about Trea Turner.
Okay.
Um, am I wrong for being a little hesitant about it?
Well, what is the premise of you being hesitant about it? What scares you about
I,
Trea Turner?
I think it's nothing scares me about Trea Turner. The guy is slump proof. I mean, I listened to his whole highlight film narrated by John Hamm. It was awesome. Shout out to that agent. What worries me is like how much is Middleton willing to spend? You know, is it 30 M's for Trea Turner and then hey, we're gonna plug and play with a third reliever, or is it hey, Trea Turner and Carlos Rodon is on the table, or Trea Turner and Justin Verlander is on the table? Because you could sell me on Bogarts, you could sell me on Swanson, if you can also sell me on like a number one, number two pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have to kind of dust off my Phillies cap here. I haven't really been in this lately, but I will say this: anytime you can go out and add a player like that, it's going to excite the fan base. It's going to create a lot of juice, a lot of energy. But that's not necessarily what this fan base needs right now. I mean, they got a World Series appearance, right? So I don't think that you need to give this fan base a jolt with this type of signing. That being said, he just does so many things well. And when you stack up all of these different shortstop possibilities, and though it is a very strong market, he's got to be at the top of it. I mean, he is the best all-around player. But there are a few different concerns when you look at it. Number one, he probably is going to cost top dollar. And what is that going to do? Is it going to deplete your financial allocation to other holes that you have on this team? So I think that that's a valid concern. And then when you just look at the player himself, I mean, he has had a history of injuries. And, you start to look at that and you go, can I count on this guy for 140 games plus per year? Or am I going to be, and if you look at his year by year, there's a lot of seasons where he played less than 100 games. And I think that you do have to take that into consideration. So I want the Phillies to go out and do Trea Turner. I think that the leadoff spot in this lineup continues to really, really hamper this offense. When you talk about the inconsistencies of what the Phillies offense was in 2022, I think a lot of it starts with the fact that they still don't have a clearly defined leadoff hitter. And I think he can be that for this team. So, I mean, that's the guy that I circle and say, if you can go get him, go get him.
Okay.
I think from a clubhouse standpoint, the fit, the relationship with Bryce Harper, I think all that stuff's real. I think that matters. So I would do that deal. That is the guy that I would pay. I would pay him more, not absurd amount more, but that's the guy I would probably go target. But this
What
team
if they
does have
whiff?
multiple holes.
Say that again. Sorry,
It does have multiple holes, and
yeah.
I look at the way that the World Series played out and the way this postseason played out, and it's very hard to be critical of the Phillies right now, but I mean, you look at what they trotted out in the World Series in terms of starting pitching, and it's really hard to replicate that recipe, that formula. You talk about Rob Thompson pushing all the right buttons. Mm-hmm. What I'd rather see the Phillies do is not require the manager to mix and match and have to have every correct button pressed in order for things to work out. There is something to be said for, hey, let's trot out a guy that's just going to blow your fucking doors off. And the Phillies didn't really have that luxury beyond Zach Wheeler this postseason.
I mean, the NL East is going to be an absolute bloodbath next year.
Yeah.
And then you see the Houston Astros, who are probably going to be the ones you're going to compete against with, go out and really fill the only hole they had at first base and sign Jose Abreu. Go ahead.
Well, it's what is the goal of the 2022 Phillies, right? Like you have this, or I'm sorry, the 23 Phillies. You have young talent coming in Andy Painter, and you look at these guys and you say, all right, there's finally some real legitimate like blue chip talent that could maybe be knocking on the door this season. And you hear about Abel and McGarrett. We know the names, but we don't know what it is going to look like in.
And they're probably going to be on a pitch limit when they do get up here.
Yeah, for sure. So you know that you're going to get some in-house reinforcements, and that's great. But this is still a core that I would say doesn't have to win in 23. Like the window doesn't slam shut after 23. But when you look at these guys coming off the season they just had, I do think it's legitimate to kind of think they got to do it in 23 or 24. So like that's where I look at it and say like, well, if you're just trying to compete and win a wild card and give the fans something to talk about until, the Eagles get going in early October next year, then fine. Like, you do one of these free agent signings and just hope it pans out. But if it's championship aspirations, if that is now the standard, the Phillies have to be better next year than they were this year. You cannot bank on a team, being a wild card and busting through that way. Like, that is not a sustained recipe for success. The Phillies have to be better next year.